What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Oh boy, do we have an episode to talk about today, because we are talking about Season 2, Episode 23, Crossover. So here we are in the mirror Keith and Mike universe. Look out, everything is a little backwards. How's it going, Mike?
Keith, it's going great, man. I'm so excited to be with you today. Things are flipped, things are flopped. But one thing you can guarantee, it's going to be a hot mess.
It's definitely going to be a hot mess, because that's our truth on either side of the universe. It's universal, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what else is universal, Mike?
What's that?
Our patrons who are supporting our show, and we are very grateful to them. Mike, who are we grateful to right now?
Always.
And what are they getting?
Yeah, well, we're always grateful to everyone watching, not just our patrons, but especially our patrons. Let's be honest. That's Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes, show me those toonies, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's Boot Shivs. Open that, pop that top.
Yeah.
CRM Productions, Charles Babudge, Nikolay Ivanovich Lobachevsky at Grim Toys Delusions at 12 p.m. They get all kinds of bonus stuff, Keith. The producers on the show, that's first and foremost. They get us playing video games first before the YouTube masses. They get all kinds of behind the scenes. We're going to watch another animated episode coming up soon. We're going to watch a TNG because Mike needs to know the first flip-flop episode through the wormhole.
It's going to be an original series.
Yeah, I got a little confused. But anyway, they get a lot of good stuff, and they get our unwavering love and support. Nope.
Indeed. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Just hitting buttons.
Look, we told you we're going to be a hot mess, and we keep our promises. So there's lots to talk about in this episode. And so, I debated whether or not to make Mike watch the first crossover from the original series, which I guess I probably should have if you were a little bit confused by what happened. But they do
enough exposition dumping, but I don't know.
They do some exhibition as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true, as a matter of fact. But I did get a little confused just with the Kirk and Spock stuff.
Right.
Like it felt like somebody was left behind and never. I didn't quite get it, but
Yeah, I mean, basically to very very quickly. So Kirk gets zapped into this alternate dimension, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's evil Spock, it's evil everybody on the ship. They're part of the Terran Empire, and basically he is able to get himself back along with Scotty and Uhura. But before he does, he sort of implants the idea that maybe being evil isn't a good idea to Spock, who takes his place as captain, and then Spock becomes the president of whatever, and then they become weak. But all we really know is Kirk gets back and he puts in some of our ideals into Spock's head in the mirror universe. That's all we get from that episode.
Okay.
And so all of this is an extrapolation on literally just him saying some stuff to Spock.
Okay.
So, which is why I didn't think it was absolutely necessary. Because I'm debating, will the coolness of the reveal of what's happening, of like where are we? This is crazy. Everything's backwards. Will that be more fun not having seen that, or having seen that? So, we'll see. So, I think we should talk about the episode, yeah?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Let's get into it. So, this episode aired on May 15th, 1994. And our top song, you know what? If you were in the mirror universe, these things would give you the opposite directions. But if you wanted to be the ace of base, you might be looking for, Mike.
Keith, I saw the sign, but it told me to go left when I should have gone right, because I was in a mirror universe. Nothing can flip me up. It can flip me upside down, and then I'll have Sisko feed me some grapes, and I guess bang me a lot.
Okay, well, hey, look, sounds good. Oh, all right. The top movie, interesting that this is the top movie in the same week that we see charges coming from the accidental firing of the movie by Alec Baldwin. The Crow was the top movie this week. So good movie, tragic movie, but really, really fun. Was very influential, including into the world of wrestling. You had the Crow Sting soon after this.
Yeah, man, Sting sure didn't want to do a lot of original thinking. Listen, here's my Crow story, Keith. Oddly, I had a friend, John. I'll leave his last name out of it. I remember we all went to see this movie together, and they all got real stoned. Right, we were like 14, right? Not me, because I was a very straight edge kid, and so I felt really weird about it. And then the movie was really weird and dark, and I haven't seen The Crow since that movie experience, since the first time, because all the tragedy, and I just I haven't seen it. And all I remember about The Crow, I mean, it looked cool, it was all cool, but I was thoroughly confused. Had no living idea what that movie was about.
I think I've only seen it. I mean, it's just like a revenge.
He was because he was like
story.
Dead, right? It was like basically Ghost. It was like goth
he was
ghost.
like some sort of he was a goth. Yes, he was a goth ghost. I think I've only ever seen it once too. I do remember liking it, but I didn't watch any of the sequels or any of that stuff. But anyway, The Crow. If it's 1994, there's your chance to see it. Yeah. But if you didn't. If you decided not to go out with your stoned teenage friends and you stayed home, what would you be watching?
Keith, had you stayed home, you actually had some good selections I'm going to tell you all about right now. Of course, we're going to start with that Sunday market. Do you know on ABC, Keith, at 8:30, which is weird that the Sunday night movie started at 8:30? Actually, 8:25. Well, that's because Before They Were Stars was airing an episode on ABC. It was like their primetime Before They Were Stars show. But the movie was Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the first network airing of Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Bet that got good ratings.
So that's what was airing there. But it was coming up against A Murderous Muse on Murder, She Wrote. The CBS Sunday night movie was My Breast.
Oh, if anything can compete with Terminator 2, I might, go for a peek.
Well, Keith, we're backing up last week's Fox on Ice Part 1 of 2. With this week, Fox had their special Fox on Ice Part 2 of 2. And
now what was on ice? Was it
just Fox?
Just Fox. It was like Rush Limbaugh. I'm skating.
Keith, I'm sure we'll be happy.
Clinton's
it was
destroying
probably
America.
Fox properties. There's probably like a dude in a Simpsons mask and all kinds of stuff. In it. But it just so Terminator 2 Judgment Day that night pulled an 18.2 in the ratings, and Fox on Ice pulled a 4.2.
Oh,
so
okay.
But Keith, I know what you're asking. What was the NBC Sunday night movie? And that was
obviously, of course,
Tears and Laughter: The Joan and Melissa Rivers Story.
Oh, wow.
Let me see quickly if there's anything cool on the Saturday night. Walker, Texas Ranger, and MacGyver, The Lost Treasure of Atlantis. That was brand new. It was a movie. It was a 2.5-hour movie. MacGyver movie.
Wow.
And then, Keith, the Bob Hope special was on Birthday Memories on NBC.
Wow. Okay. No. All right. I watched me some Walker, Texas Ranger back in. Oh, it's terrible and has grown increasingly so in context. But I certainly enjoyed his super ninja kicks and his super tight jeans, which means he could only kicks people in the knees.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's as far as I can go. All right. Anyway, let's stop with the chicanery and get to the important parts of this the news from the Weekly World News. Mike, have you heard of it? Have you seen it?
I have, but I have to tell you. Wait, hold on. Stall.
Okay, we're stalling. We're stalling. You know what? A certain form. It's been out for years, but I don't think I really clocked it until Bob Woodard helped us all know. The legendary Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist pointed out that maybe a certain former president didn't need one of these. It's a magic potty with incredible gizmos making doctors obsolete. It is a $30,000 toilet that checks your temperature, blood pressure, pulse, and 128 other things you can check from below. Well, I mean, I'm surprised you don't already have one of these, Mike. With your bidet obsessions and your technology obsession, why don't you have a magic potty?
Yeah, because it turns out the only thing I need from a potty is a stream of water straight up my
This has gotten uncomfortable. You know.
It's got to be one of those days.
Speaking of uncomfortable, like if you're watching this on YouTube and not in the podcast, we flipped, right? We're mirrored.
And I keep looking over to my.
I'm on the wrong side, and I'm so confused. I'm utterly confused by being on the wrong side of this pretend thing that we're doing. I had to move the monitor that I watch to a different angle so that I could get my eye line right. It was very strange. Anyway, you know, these mirror universes are very expensive.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
But the person who had to helm this expensive episode was David Livingston, who last directed The Maquis Part 1. It is a teleplay by Peter Allen Fields, who last wrote Blood Oath, and Michael Piller, showrunner, with a story by Peter Allen Fields. Which means it is time to get into the trivia, Mike. Now, Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia.
Bing.
You know, on my YouTube channel at Keith Varney, where some of my work is now available for you to take a listen to, our friend Sans Deity said that jingle was the greatest piece of music ever composed, I believe was how he put it.
Sure, yeah. I think I think Lydia Tarr would agree.
I can't, that's, sometimes you're followed around by the things you don't expect. So anyway, it made me laugh out loud. Thank you for listening. All right, so in our trivia, Mirror Odo has a belt, and Renee liked it so much that he asked that his outer uniform be closer to the mirror uniform, which would have been so much cooler, but he did at least get his belt moving forward. So stick around for season 3. Odo's going to get a belt.
Oh, that's cool.
Very
also
exciting.
Thought it was awesome when he gets like splattered.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah. super
cool. So for the let's talk about, the scene we're all thinking about. That is the MILF bath sequence.
The MILF? MILF bath?
Not yet. A couple of years. They built this huge sort of hot tub dealie for her, and the crew was like so nice about it, and they made her like a nice hot bath for Nana Visitor, and they made it smell nice. So they put a few drops of orange oil in it. It was really nice and had a nice smell, and it was going to soften her skin. But during rehearsals, of course, so when you're on television and you're nude, you're usually, and you're not like showing it, you usually have some coverage. So you throw on some cones, you throw on some pasties or whatever, so you're covered even though you appear to be fully nude. And so so she had her cones on, but during rehearsals, all of a sudden they start popping off.
Oh no!
All the time, and they can't figure out why they won't stay on. So she asked the makeup, department, hey, what takes the glue off of these cones? And they're like, orange oil, which the crew put in the water to make it smell nice.
Oh, there you go, Keith. Now you know.
Now you know. So keep be judicious with your orange oil when you're wearing modesty cones.
Local man in Rahway, New Jersey, starts pouring orange oil in all public pools. Details to follow at 11.
It doesn't take off bathing suits. It's only if they're just wearing pasties.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, you ever been to Jersey, Keith?
Yes, but would you want to see them?
Yeah, that's
Have you ever been to Jersey, Mike?
Yes, and.
Okay, so also, that tub that they built for Kira is used in the movie Star Trek Insurrection. So they reduced, reused, recycled it for a scene, spoiler alert, with two of our main Next Generation cast members.
Star Trek, Keith's erection.
Gross. This is the second time I've been wildly uncomfortable.
Okay, I feel like I'm back now. I've adjusted. I've adjusted.
He's back.
Bizarro Mike's a comedian?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the first Mirror episode, as we talked, since the original series Mirror Mirror. which was the only Mirror episode that had appeared previous to this one. Although they had continually pitched doing a Mirror episode on Next Generation, it just never panned out. So we got our first one here on Deep Space Nine. According to director David Livingston, it is also one of the most expensive episodes they'd ever done, due mainly to the makeup.
Oh, interesting.
Because it was on the station, it was run by Cardassians, Klingons, and Bajorans. So you needed to have a whole mess of extras in full Cardassian and full Klingon.
Well, I feel like they had to kind of redo all the sets too, right?
And they had to do set alterations. So they had to everything had to be a little bit different. Everything had to be changed. The lights had to be swapped out, and of course the swing set of the mine was very expensive as well. Swing set means they have a set there that they just change around and make it do different things. But they had to build the whole mine and light that and all, and so that was very, very expensive. And lastly, because Mike responsibly did not spoil himself with the Deep Space Nine companion.
Thanks for the warnings.
Yes, thank you. With our now official warnings spoiler. Was that Delusions at Noon is who does that?
I believe so.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for your service. So lastly, they originally planned for Worf to be on this episode. And we see Mirror Worf, but he was not available because he was filming. So his track went to Garrick. But that would have been Worf when this was happening. So you want to know why Michael Dorn wasn't available? That's because over on The Next Generation, they were airing Preemptive Strike. Another one we should probably watch, Mike, because this one is an episode in which Ensign Ro, who is Bajoran, who is the proto-Kira, goes undercover to infiltrate the Maquis.
Oh, okay.
And then is torn in her loyalties. So it's a good one that is also, it's laying track for Voyager, but it's also helping fill in some of the gaps in our understanding of the Maquis in our Deep Space Nine world. So our guest stars this week include Andrew Robinson back as Garrick, awesome, John Cothran Jr. as Takak, who also did The Chase in Next Generation and The Shipment on Enterprise, Stephen Gevedon as Klingon number 1, Jack R. Roran as Human, and Dennis Matalone as the One-Eyed Marauder, who that is a person you have seen a billion times and you just don't know it. He has done a gazillion stunt and background performances on all Trek. With Next Generation, he has stood in and done stunts for almost all of the male cast members of everything you've ever seen, and is a frequent background actor in various alien makeups. But he gets a character here, and he gets a line, but he only gets one eye. All right.
And they spit in it still.
And they do. It's rude. So, Mike, what do you say we hop into our mirror screening room and get into this episode?
Yeah, dude, we got to do it.
I'm excited. Okay, Mike. So we begin crossover in our universe with Bashir and Kira heading back through the wormhole.
Yep.
It's going to happen. There it is. There they are.
It's funny because we're flipped on the screen. I know you mentioned this already, but it's funny.
Yeah.
I keep expecting things to be in a different place than they are, which I can't explain to anyone, but it's really throwing me. So I couldn't find the button. Apologize.
Well, because I'm frequently, obviously we're in different places, right? But we see each other on the screen. See this, we see exactly what you see on YouTube. And so that is my reference point as well. So I'm constantly looking at Mike because of the nonverbal communication we do here as we're broadcasting.
Well, and I usually put my monitor my like viewing monitor over here so that it looks as if I'm referencing in your direction. But I guess I got to do this week.
And I keep looking at where I think you're going to be, and then I see me, and it's very distracting.
You're a handsome man.
I'm too handsome. I think that's really the problem. It's very distracting. But you want to know who else is too handsome? That is our Bashir, who is chatting up Kira. So they've been back in the Gamma Quadrant. Remember the Gamma Quadrant?
Yeah.
It used to be a big thing. But they've apparently set up the first Bajoran colony in the Gamma Quadrant. I wonder what happened to that. But it's interesting that they put a colony over in the Gamma Quadrant. And we learn a couple of things. One, that Kira meditates, not surprisingly, and Bashir is still annoying.
Yeah.
Also, not a surprise. If add a female person in the cockpit, he is going to be annoying. And I wonder, behind the scenes, if they'd started dating yet when they filmed this scene. It would have been really interesting to.
Wait,
that's none of my business.
I didn't know that they were dating.
They got married.
Well, why would I know that?
We've talked about it before.
Specifically not to read anything.
We've specifically talked about the fact that they.
I specifically didn't listen to you.
It's because I'm too handsome. You get distracted. I understand.
I have a magic power of capturing a screenshot with people's eyes closed.
Oh, man, this is like how they want to be represented forever. So, yes. So, anyway, Bashir asks her out, and mercifully, something goes horribly wrong when they go through the wormhole to break that out. So they zoom out of the wormhole to discover, the station is missing. And they do eventually find it, and it's orbiting Bajor, back where it was before they moved it in Emissary. Then a giant Klingon ship shows up, and 2 Klingons board the shuttle. When they spot Kira, they start backing away immediately and beam out. So they arrive at the station to find Garrick and 2 Klingons holding phasers on her. Then, look out, there's a second Kira wearing tight black pleather.
And Keith, I knew something was up because she was carrying graph paper. Did you see that? Just off frame. She was carrying graph paper. I think she's plotting something.
Wait, so you went that far? So she wasn't holding graph paper.
No. It's just, it's a joke. A friend told me the other day, and I was like, oh, I got to tell Keith that dad joke. And I just decided this is how I was going to get it in.
Mike will walk 10,000 miles for a joke that's not really funny.
Listen. Don't you sass me.
That's amazing. Because I was like, oh, did I not spot that? Did she have her script in her hand and they didn't catch it? No. We're doing a graph paper joke. Anyway, so we end our teaser with second Kira. So here's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
So Mike, not having seen the previous crossover, what are you thinking at this point?
Well, you see, the director did very. There's this like television trope that really started in the 60s Batman television series. Batman. Keith, did you know how Bruce Wayne's mom called him for dinner or supper? Dinner, Batman.
And Mike will go 10,000 miles for a joke that's not that funny.
So they did this thing where whenever the bad guys would be on screen or be in the bad guy lair, they would kind of tilt the camera and do an upshot, which they started using early on in this episode to kind of let me know, hey, we're in an alternate space or an alternate dimension, an alternate place, and this Kira is going to be a bad guy. Now, it wasn't just the camera angle. I mean, the pleather suit and eating grin let me know that she's probably a baddie. So I kind of was able to summarize what was happening without really getting too much context.
You can tell she's a baddie by how much friggin' fun Nana Visitor is having in that part. So we begin in Act 1, Bashir asks naturally, where the heck are we? And Garrick explains that this is Terek Nor, the center of the Bajoran Authority. Mike, did you remember what Terek Nor is?
No.
Terek Nor is the previous name for Deep Space Nine when the Cardassians owned it.
Yeah, the dark lighting gave it away eventually.
Yes. So Kira realizes something is up and smartly tries to make a run for it. But other Kira seems to know exactly what's going on, interestingly. And she takes our Kira and sends Bashir off to the mines, as any sensible person would. The Kiras walk on the promenade, and it's all different, dark, and angry. The humans, Terrans, are slaves, and the Klingons, Bajorans, and Cardassians are all in charge. Mirror Kira, it's going to be the nightmare to say out 100 times. Mirror Kira and Mirror Garrick debate torturing a Terran who tried to escape. Garrick wants to go all Patriot Act on him, but Mirror Kira says, nah. I wrote that so many times, that's going to be a struggle bus.
How about MK? Can we agree that MK is Mirror Kira?
I think making me say Mirror Kira is going to be fun.
If you happen to be watching this past 5 o'clock, every time Keith messes up Mirror Kira, go ahead and take a drink.
It sounds like I've already taken the drink, but I haven't.
It's 1:30 here.
It is 1:30. Yeah. Mirror Kira is the intendant, and she is in charge of the station. We discover Mirror O'Brien working on the mines, while Mirror Odo is the hard-ass guard. He says, no jokes, and I definitely like his dark uniform better than the one he wears
100%.
in the normal universe, as did he. I mean, how much friggin' cooler. They just changed the color. It's the same cut.
I will say,
not that stupid tan and brown.
Especially in him in this costume, does really harken to Star Trek costuming, Star Wars costuming. The Imperial,
very Imperial,
Imperial. I was going to say wizard, but that's incorrect. The Imperial Guard.
Yeah, I mean, I do think. Actually, now looking at the screenshot, and part of it is a lighting and the character or whatever, but like, I think Odo needed to be in sort of tan and brown, a non-threatening color, because he's pretty scary wearing black like this.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think it would have been a harder lift for us not to be scared of that character if he was in this color. So anyway, we head to Sisko / Mirror Kira's office, and she is, of course, entranced by our Kira. She explains what happened. And this is where it was good for Mike to hear this. Mm-hmm. We're in the Mirror universe from the original series episode Mirror Mirror. Mirror Kira recaps the episode, and all that really matters is that Kirk turned Mirror Spock good. So then, this is new information in Deep Space Nine, not from the original series. Mirror Spock became the head of the Terran Empire and tried to make them good. But Star Trek twist, being good, it also made them weak, and they got taken over by the alliance between the Cardassians and the Klingons, which is fascinating, right? From a Star Trek point of view, being good guys, having democracy, not being imperialistic monsters, and from that episode, right, we're trying to inject our values into that system. Turns out, nope, you guys got wiped out, and now you're all slaves.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a cool twist.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating, and I think it's also a story that probably would not have been allowed when Gene Roddenberry was alive. I don't think he would have gone dark like that, because it's dark. But we're on Deep Space Nine, man. We get dark. So, so our Kira, naturally, I want to go home. But Mirror Kira doesn't know how. And she says that the protocols that she says that we have protocols for this situation, because the people in this universe, because of the impact that one crossover had are much more aware of that having happened than people in our universe. So we know exactly what's going on. And they have protocols that if you see somebody cross over, kill them.
If you see something, kill something.
If you see something, kill something, which sounds like a mirror place. So anyway, but she doesn't want to, because Intendant Kira doesn't have a taste for violence. She's very reasonable. So our Kira tries to manipulate Mirror Kira by asking if she can teach her, meaning our Kira, to become the leader of her Bajor. Sort of getting the sort of imperialist feel and like, yeah, that's what I want to. And she tries to keep Bashir alive by calling him an arrogant Terran in need of a dose of reality. Nana Visitor does an amazing job of creating two distinct characters here, even if the eye lines don't always line up.
I'll say this, though.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later, probably. What I love about this scene mostly is that most television, speaking of tropes, a lot of TV, even movies, at this point in the pacing of the episode, will have our character, our protagonist, say something dumb or get themselves in trouble or stumble over themselves. But the fact that Kira is smart enough to instantly recognize I need to play defense and I need to obfuscate and I need to get on her good side, or she's trying different like tactics, even though right away antagonist Kira recognizes that in her.
Say it.
And Mirror Kira recognizes it in her. It's still a standoff, a tete-a-tete, if you will, and it's exactly how Kira would behave. And it doesn't slow the plot, doesn't hurt the plot for her to be trying different angles. It's great. I think it's a great choice.
I completely agree, because honestly, both sides here are already on step 2. They're already smarter. So Mirror Kira knows exactly who she is, knows exactly what happened. We don't have like, who are you? Why is there 2 of me?
Right.
And our Kira can sense. She's been there. She's like, oh, I know this is a dystopian crazy pants and everyone's all imperialistic. Let me use that. So I'm not going to everybody's on step 2.
Yep.
So we fast forward through those steps, which allows us to get much further along the story in 45 minutes. It's great. It's good stuff. So Mirror Kira gets our Kira some quarters and says, I'll call you later, boo. And that brings us to Act 2. We go to the mines. And our Kira comes to inspect the mine. She's able to talk to Bashir. And once she mentions Kirk, he figures out what's going on, because as a Federation or as a Starfleet officer, he was read into what happened there in a way that Kira wouldn't be, because she's Bajoran. So Bashir remembers that Kirk because
what I was a little confused about when we got the Expo dump was why Kira was oblivious to Kirk, because Kirk is the most famous of famous. That makes sense.
He's famous to humans in Starfleet. Yeah. She's not a part of Starfleet. Yeah. So why would she? So luckily, Bashir remembers that Kirk got to the mirror universe in a transporter accident, and that might be the way home. So who knows transporters? Of course, O'Brien. So he goes to talk to Mirror O'Brien. So later, Kira, who is given sort of free reign to wander around, which is interesting, goes to Quarks, who's running the bar in this universe as well. She chats him up and asks him for secret help to get a transporter. And he can help, but he doesn't want Latinum. Doesn't even know what it is. What he wants is the ability to send folks to our universe.
So they know that a transporter mishap or a transporter was involved in the MacGuffin of how the whole thing happened.
They crossed over.
But we don't know how or what the mechanism of it.
No, and we didn't really in the originals. It was never really just. It goes under the Star Trek transporter malfunction, of which just weird stuff happens when you transport and some sort of a something and technobabble. Technobabble is what caused them to cross over. And so they all know something like that happened. But this Quark just wants to help people escape this dystopia. So then Mirror Garrick shows up and arrests Quark for helping people escape the station. Uh-oh. But then, look out, in saunters Mirror Sisko. And he starts slinging drinks in Quark's place. I know.
Avery Brooks is like, do you have any direction for me? And they're like, swashbuckle, baby. Swashbuckle.
Oh, he's going to swash and he's going to buckle.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
and then he's going to unbuckle a couple times.
He's going to unbuckle a couple times. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Back in the mines, we find Bashir secretly talking to O'Brien. And he says, hey, we're best friends on my side of the wormhole. And I don't think we'd really established that yet. But the lighting in the scene is amazing.
So good.
Like that red light beam through his head there. I thought that was the coolest lighting.
It's very Knight Rider.
It's very Knight Rider. It's very
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah. But it's great and a challenge from a setup to get his face lit while backlit by that red. Looks great. Love it. Very cool. Lighting on the show continues to be fantastic. So he asks O'Brien for help getting back to the transporter, and O'Brien tells him to go away. Then Odo shows up and tells O'Brien that Sisko wants him in the bar. Mirror Sisko. So in the bar, so you can see some of that swashing and some of that buckling there.
What if Avery Brooks fronted an 80s cover band?
But like Guar.
It's 80s metal cover band.
80s metal, yes, exactly. With like Chunk or not Chunk, from the Goonies. Hey, you guys.
Hot, sticky sweet from my head to my feet. Yeah.
That sounds great. Album's available now.
Some Sisko on me. Come on by me. Yeah. All right, sorry. My apologies.
Somebody pull that out and save it. So we find out that Sisko, even though he's a Terran, meaning human, he has command of a ship because Mirror Kira finds him amusing, and he serves as a pirate for her.
Mm-hmm.
Mirror O'Brien shows up and bullies Mirror O'Brien.
Long John Silver, you know what I'm saying? Long.
Mm-hmm. So, and Mirror Sisko bullies Mirror O'Brien and tells him to fix his ship. Then Mirror Kira summons Sisko to her quarters, and he does not look happy about it.
Bam Bam Bigelow?
Bam Bam Bigelow is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we then arrive in Act 3. Our Kira arrives in Mirror Kira's quarters, being bathed in milk bath in a milk bath, all naked. I can't even talk. It's like, whoa, God, the 12-year-old in me is going. Ah!
Sisko is eating a popsicle.
I think it's a feather. He's licking a feather.
Yeah, or a shard of glass of some sort. No, it's definitely not a feather. It's like Lionel's sword from.
It's a dagger.
Yes,
it's a Klingon dagger. Okay, well, whatever it is. So we also see her boy toy Sisko is there with a couple of Vulcan servants. Sisko wants to leave, and she asks, "Did I hurt your feelings?" He responds, "I never had any to hurt, Intendant." It's pretty bleak. And I think in this, and we sort of see it throughout the episode. I actually find the seriousness that he plays his being essentially being used as a sex slave. It's like a serious thing. And I really like that they gave that weight, even though it's like, but she's a hot lady. How could she possibly, assault you? Well, yeah, she sure as hell can, and it does have real, emotional consequences for him.
Well, he makes it clear. Yeah, he makes it clear that it's not like that's a fringe benefit. It's what he's doing it so that his crew can have a better situation than what they'd have otherwise. So it's
Yeah,
You know?
he's in sexual servitude, which is not played for yucks and played with the seriousness that it is. And I love the fact that even though the sort of reverse gendered, they still treat it seriously, and he treats it seriously. And I think that's sort of ahead of its time. And I think I appreciate that as somebody who takes that seriously. Mirror Kira asks what our Kira was doing looking for a transporter. She says that they've all been redesigned to prevent another crossover. So no luck. She's sad that our Kira doesn't trust her, and she wants her love. Garrick then shows up with Quark, who's been tortured. Mirror Kira acknowledges his empathy for the Terrans that he was trying to help, then sentences him to death. Then she announces, I'm throwing a party, and gives Kira a dress. When our Kira shows up, she finds in her quarters, she finds Garrick there, who says she's never going to let you go because she's in love with you, because she trusts our Kira like she trusts herself. And so a couple of things here. I mean, obviously there's a lot of hints towards Intendent Kira's bisexuality, right? Which I have mixed feelings about, right? Because I'm like, oh, that's, it's great. I love the, some representation there. I love it. But I'm also a little bit uncomfortable that, there's that trope of bisexual means a little bit evil. And I don't like that trope.
Okay.
But I liked, which was like, ooh. So I have mixed feelings about all of that, but it's clearly there.
For what it's worth, I read that not at all. I read only that she's so megalomaniacal and self-centered that of course she would love herself. I didn't read it sexually. I didn't read it as even really romantically. I just read it as who would, if you have everything you could ever want, what would you be obsessed with? Oh, and you're that selfish and self-centered? Well, a clone of yourself. That would be the best buddy, the best toy.
I would definitely want to make some alterations to my clone.
Yeah, well, not if you thought you were perfect, Keith. Clearly, we're not we're not evil versions of ourselves.
For people who put their faces on the internet for about 4 hours a week, it's amazing we don't find ourselves perfect. Anyway,
I'm waiting for the podcast that's just two psychologists talking about all of our content. It's sort of like JD's video of our video.
Yeah, exactly.
But more analytical.
It's just two people like, I'm very concerned
and uncomfortable.
Yeah. Anyway, so Garrick here tries to make a deal. Take Mirror Kira's place after I kill her, and I'll let you go in a couple of weeks. Then Garrick will be in charge. But if she says no, I'm going to kill Bashir. So you clocked that plan. Yeah. Interesting. It's a good one. So in Act 4, Kira goes back to the mines to talk to Bashir. They have got to GTFO. They need to get back through to the runabout and go back through the wormhole. That's how they figure they can get back. Kira goes up to mirror Sisko.
That's the plan to get home. Okay, we thought it was going to have to be a really specific transporter meetup. Mike thought from the beginning, okay, we have to get a transporter and go in the transporter while we're in the wormhole. That's what I thought. But it turns out they've changed all the transporters. So let's just go back the way we came. That's the big.
Well, I think the motivation there is we need to get out. We're about to die. Hopefully, maybe it'll work if we just do the opposite.
Whoa.
But more importantly, we just need to get out. Ooh, welcome to Just Me.
No! No!
Mike! Stop pressing buttons. All right. Yeah, so I think it literally is just we need to get out. And hopefully it'll work if we go backwards. So Kira goes up to Mirror Sisko and asks him for help getting her runabout back. He implies that Major Kira will cut off his little Ben if she catches him helping her. Kira tries to convince Sisko to fight, and he says, I'm not your hero. And she says, yes, you charmed yourself out of the mines, but you and I both know you're no less of a victim than anyone else here, as he's clearly being used as a sex slave. Later, our Kira shows up at the party wearing a very slinky dress. We get a casual reference to Lursa and Bator from a Klingon who almost gets in a fight with one of Sisko's men. Mike, do you remember who Lursa and Bator are?
Yeah, they were those like, can I say, those hotties?
Yeah, okay. Well, now I know why it was memorable. I'm not going to make the memorable joke. I'm not going to do it. I'm better than that. But then the Klingon gets in a fight with one of Sisko's men. Then Mirror Kira shows up wearing the identical dress to our Kira. So then we head back to the mines, and Odo taunts Bashir before something blows up in the mines. And Bashir uses this as an oh yeah, there's the one-eyed guy.
Getting spat on.
Wait, he's got the he's got the penis whistle. Go back.
Oh yeah,
it's the dick whistle.
Dick whistle.
Yes. Find the button.
Oh, I had to clear all the sound pads to Keith's dismay. The only one I could keep though was
Yep. Boop, boop, boop. Keep playing it. Maybe it'll be funny.
Yeah.
Where the hell was I? Okay, so we're in the mines, and Bashir uses an explosion as an opportunity to attack the guard. And here we go. Here's where it gets crazy. He takes a phaser out of the guard and shoots Mirror Odo, who blows the heck up. The practical goo effects, awesome. Mm-hmm. So they built a wax Odo and blew it up.
That's
which
cool.
Which is how they did it. Which, old school, wax dummy stuff. It's really cool and very effective, and so much better that it was practical than if they did that digitally at that point. But certainly oh wow. So at this
even
point,
had a good sound effect. It sounded like a watermelon, like a Gallagher sketch. It was like, wow.
Casual racism and homophobia.
Was he a bad guy?
Oh my God!
Gallagher?
He was a monster.
And I can't keep up with any of this.
No, well, that was like from the 80s, but whatever.
My dad loved Gallagher.
Well, that explains it.
R.I.P.
Misogyny. Take that, vegetable. Okay. Oh Jesus, where are we? But anyway, so at this point,
I love that we're dropping hot topical references like Gallagher the comedian.
Like Gallagher. Rest in pieces. So at this point, which is kind of which is really fun what you can do in a mirror episode, two of our main characters are dead.
Yeah, dude.
Quark is dead and Odo is dead.
Yeah. And Odo was great.
Universe.
They were not Odo. Quark was a great one because that was a great red herring, I thought, because he really thought he was going to be integral to the acquisition of the transporter. And
the mirror versions of everybody being the evil versions, but
Quark was chivalrous,
Quark
right?
is altruistic.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
That was funny.
So Act 5 begins with Bashir on the run as alarms ring. He climbs through the Jeffries tubes before running into Mirror O'Brien. He's afraid to help, but he eventually tells Bashir where the runabout is being stored. He asks to come along, and Bashir agrees. Sure, I'll take you.
Sure, man.
They prance through the hallways before being caught by some Klingons and brought to the Intendant. Folks, if you actually have that access to the episode, watch their running in this scene. They're like high knee hopping.
Yeah,
They're like literally prancing, because obviously what happened there is that the hallway that they're in is super, super short. Yeah, exactly. So they had to take up time and look like they were running fast, but they had only like 6 feet to go. So they sort of like prance. It's really, really funny. Anyway, Intendant Kira is distraught over the death of Odo. She regrets treating the Terrans gently. And she points out he's one of one on this side of the universe too. So he was special. Intendant Kira sets Mirror Garrick to the task of publicly torturing him to death. So, dark. Mirror Kira then asks O'Brien what he was thinking, and he monologues about the hope he was given, that somewhere, somehow, things are better than this. Then Mirror Sisko takes Garrick's phaser, and they all escape together. Sisko and his people are going to stay in their universe and try to start some sort of resistance. So they escape out of the Mirrorverse. Apparently, shooting that closes the door.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Video
they
game
get
style.
out.
Yep.
Totally. So they're going to try to start a resistance. So our Kira and our Bashir head out.
Which I
for the
thought was
worm.
like, I thought that was all paced well and all the pieces fit. I thought that it made sense that he would come to his that he would find his hero-dom and like start the resistance. That all makes sense to me. But then it's this final little outro that really upsets me. Because it's like, I don't mind technobabble, but when it's the whole conceit of how do we get there and how do we get home, and it's just like, oh, we've got to go through the thing and the bleep bloop bop, the bloop bloop bleep bloop, and then we're home. Really, no.
Well, I mean, I don't think it was necessary. They were hoping it was going to work, but from their perspective, the people chasing them did not know the wormhole existed. So if they could get to the Gamma Quadrant, they'd be safe.
Yeah.
From all those people.
Okay.
So going through the wormhole
fair. Makes
a great deal of sense.
Okay.
And
then they find like a leak of a leakity leak.
Yeah, the technobabble thing that was going wrong, they don't fix, hoping it will replicate the thing happening again. So
basically, find the gas leak. The only. So I have reverb? No, I took it off. The only way to get home, Keith, we must travel through the fart.
Travel through the fart. We must not let the fart dissipate. We must brave our way through the cloud and get back to our universe. So they head out for the wormhole, but the Klingon cruiser starts firing at them. But luckily, they get to the wormhole in time. Which your problem with this scene is that. My problem with this scene is this. So the station is in orbit of Bajor. We know that the wormhole is hours away from Bajor. And remember when they moved the station from orbit of Bajor to the wormhole, and traveling back and forth to Bajor, it takes hours. And they just kind of boom. Apparently, in this universe, it takes 10 seconds of being chased by Klingons in order to get to the wormhole. So, you could solve that by they go to warp briefly, which is super dangerous within a solar system, but you could conceptually do that, but they don't. Anyway, we just kind of forget about that. Never mind. So we are back in our universe, and our heroes on Ops see the shuttle come back to the wormhole. When asked where they've been, Kira says, through the looking glass. And apparently, she doesn't know human music well or anything about Kirk, but she is pretty well read in human literature.
I thought it was cheeseball, but I'll allow it.
It would have made much more sense had Bashir said it. Because when would she have read Alice in Wonderland? Mm-hmm. She didn't even know who Kirk is. All right, so now we are back in our universe, do a little vocab quiz. And now it's time for Mike and Deglio's Star Trek Vocabulary Quiz. All right, Mike, what was the Terran Empire?
The Terran Empire was like the humans, right? That was us. And then some switches happened, and bad but then good Spock led us into being weak, even though he was trying to do the right thing, and we became slaves, Keith.
Yes, indeed. And this one's easy. Mike, what's the mirror universe?
Oh, Keith, it's the other place where my jokes are funny.
That worked.
Yeah, that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there it is. Let's come along home. Here we are back at our quarks, our evil quarks, and we're back on the right side of things. Oh, I'm so happy to be back in our universe.
Right. Feels so right.
And, we've already sort of begun the discussion. Mike, did you find any wormholes in the...
Yeah, the one that bothered me was the... Like, it's like having a prison break movie. It's like watching Shawshank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they poke the hole through the little... I don't want to give too... Well, spoilers for Shawshank Redemption, the greatest movie. You should have seen it by now. They poke the hole and it comes through and he rips the poster off the wall and he has that scene where you're looking through the tunnel and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see the big scene where they explain how he got out. But then, like, they just cut to him walking into the bank and you're like, wait, what? That's what I felt like.
They show it. They totally show him. He's crawling through the walls. He's cutting a hole in the pipe.
I know. I'm saying, what if they didn't? That's what this felt like.
I was going to say, did you just come at Shawshank?
But you never watched it, Mike?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I just felt like I wanted more
technobabble explanation as to how they...
or like, it's not just like they took the you would think that would be the easier route than do a whole chase sequence, but whatever. I just felt like how the transporter accident happened, I was interested, especially having never seen it before. So I thought that we would have to discover how Kirk got out before and tie back to that episode even more, but instead we kind of abandoned it. So that was my big one, and I know yours was the Bajor travel.
Yeah, was the distance between the wormhole and Bajor. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really about that and never was. And, they didn't really explain it in the original Mirror thing. They're just like, oh, something went weird,
mm-hmm.
right? And so the logic of just doing the same thing you did again to get back, it's convenient, right? Because we're, obviously we don't want to spend 10 minutes on figuring out how to get home because we're trying to deal with all these political machinations. Although there are some... theories, though, as to why was the wormhole involved in this, thinking that perhaps it involved the prophets, that maybe they wanted the universes to communicate with each other. So perhaps there was some divine intervention here happening. So
okay.
It's interesting. It's not something that's really touched on, but it's an interesting theory. Mm-hmm. And I can totally see why that might happen.
I also felt like it was unnecessary to have the scene. I mean, like, yes, I guess you needed to see them. You needed confirmation that they had made it back home. But, like, the very trite scene of just, like, the crew at home being like, we've been looking for you. Where have you been? Just to button it up with, like, the cheesiest line of all cheese. But
yeah, we didn't need that.
Yeah.
No, we needed to show that we got... All you needed to do is... All right, so if I were rewriting it, right, I would have had the attack be much more, on the runabout, much more damaging. They've lost power, there's smoke and fire everywhere, and so the last thing we see is them sort of crash out of the wormhole, and we just look up into the window and we see the station.
Yeah, something like that.
Because that's all we would need.
Yeah, the ending was just like, but okay, cool. That's not what that's not what this segment's about.
No, it's not. But you know what our next segment's about? It's our favorite moment.
Yes. Oh, there's some good ones.
Yeah.
My two favorite were, I think the dialogue Kira has with Ben is really good because it gives a lot of insight into Bizarro Ben, but also how Bizarro Ben, how there is a connection between the character, between the mirror versions, and how... And even with O'Brien too. So I loved that dialogue. But like I mentioned in the beginning, just to kind of full circle it, I really loved that first scene between the two Kiras. I loved that they were both playing off one another, but also conspiring against one another, even though Mira Kira was a little bit more taken by our Kira, and how our Kira attempted to manipulate that as the episode went along. So I really think that was the scene, and it just shows once again Nana Visitor, like, what she can do. Nana, Mike screwed up. Who's surprised? No one. That's all I got left on the board. So she's just excellent, even when she's doing a scene with herself, which I can only imagine is really difficult. So
Yeah.
I just think I'm going to pick that as my favorite moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're drawing the parallel between what Mirror Ben is going through and what Kira went through. I think is really good, and also partly why it's great to have this be a Kira-centric episode, because Kira has actually been through what all of the Terrans in the Mirror universe are existing in, right? Mm-hmm. Being occupied, being subjugated, trying to resist against this unstoppable force. So in a lot of ways, she fits in to that universe pretty well. And so, with the tables turned, right? But she's able to, like, yeah, I'm right here with you. I've been you on this station, like literally in this place. And I think that that's interesting. Yeah, and I agree that to have that first scene with the two Kiras who are not dumbed down, they're smartened up. And I think that that's just good writing, and it's great for the character. And yeah, I mean, like, and I think for me, moment, I'm just going to stretch the definition of moment. It's going to be Nana Visitor's performance throughout this whole thing. Her Intendent Kira, and she actually says in the book, like, that's much closer to my own personality. That's much closer to like who I am. And it's really cool to allow her to have as much fun as she does with this character, but the incredibly difficult job she has playing both sides in that scene. So because not only you're playing against nothing, right? So the way they shot it is they recorded half of the scene and then they played it back for her to play the other half too, but she's not looking at anything. She's not talking to anybody. There's also a whole mess of technical restrictions, right? Okay, so play this incredibly complex, layered
Look at this piece of tape on the chair, which is where your head will be.
Looking at a piece of tape, but you cannot move your face 2 inches forward because then you're going to mess with the composite. You can't move you are locked in even more than you are normally. So you're getting half of a 3x4 little screen there. And then, some of the technical elements that they did, when she touched the other face, so they had to composite the two faces there, and then somebody else's arm coming up to touch her, from the other side of the frame. So there's just so much technical stuff that she had to deal with while giving this layered performance. That's my favorite moment. Mike, let's hand out some stem bolts.
Yeah, so I apologize. I just watched this today, so I haven't really formulated a whole bunch. But I'll say this: a couple of things. One thing that I love that the series is doing, in season 1, sometimes when they I don't even call it a bottle episode, when they wanted to do like a break the mold and have a more fun kind of episode, quirky, if you will, or just give people the chance to do something different. What did we get? We got the Rumpelstiltskin thing, where like the people came to life, or a really small, emotional, tiny story bottle episode.
Weird dramatis personae, where they've acted weird for no reason.
But here they're like, wait, maybe we can do something and let the cast have a little more fun, but also expand the lore. Also
have something to say.
Also expand the universe. Like, they're starting to tell stories, even in the TNG that I've watched, or some of the movies. They're really contained stories, and I can now see them. I mean, I also, there's been foreshadowing from you and some of our viewers, but I can see them expanding the scope and the overall picture, and they're doing a lot of world building, which is generally something I felt stronger in the Star Wars universe, because it was this epic galactic story. And now Deep Space Nine seems to be connecting their old lore to now, and we have bits and pieces of like how there's all these political struggles, and how for all I know, this could tie back together. Maybe the parallel universe comes through again. The wormhole opens up so many doors, and also we've dropped the Dominion. There's a lot, right? There's a lot, and it's exciting, and it's cool also to see all of our characters get to chew the scenery a little bit here, swashbuckle a little bit, but also explore in a way, other parts of their psyche and our side that we haven't quite dealt with, right? And see how they would struggle, how they would deal in these. O'Brien, I thought, was a fascinating study because he isn't much different. He's just in a different circumstance, which I thought was cool. And anyway, so I loved that. I loved that no one just went wild and crazy with it. They were still grounded performances, though flipped. My only real complaints, aside from just kind of like missing some of the detail, which you mentioned was not really what it was about, was really just that I thought the ending was kind of clunky and felt like everything was paced really well up until, for a while, I actually thought it was going to be a two-parter because before the kind of like the explosion in the mine and that led to the whole third or final sequence, I thought there's enough here, there's enough setup for a whole another episode, but we kind of felt truncated, like the pacing kind of shortened up at the end. But, sometimes we get really great dramatic episodes. Sometimes we get really important setup episodes, and sometimes we just get a really cool episode. That's what this one lands for me. It's really cool. The way they flipped everything, the way they reset all the sets, the way they lit it, the way they costumed it, it was just oozing cool, which, to be honest with you, isn't normally a Star Trek thing for me. Even in what we've watched, it hasn't been super cool. And this felt cool, like it was slick. So I got to give it a high rating. I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it 86 self-sealing stem bolts.
Ooh, 86. Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right about it sort of being truncated at the end. And they ran out of runway a little bit, and they just had to all right, let's get home, right?
Yeah, come along home.
Yeah, come along home. Yeah, and I agree with that criticism. I agree with the end being kind of like, not as good as the rest of it. But I really like this episode for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, it's just fun. Mm-hmm. Right? It's really fun to go to an alternate universe stuff is always fun. It's always interesting. I love the changes in the set and the characterization and the mood and the settings and the ability to play with bigger movements than you can get away with on a regular show. I mean, we killed off two of our main characters, right?
Yeah, right.
Which you can't really do in the Prime universe because you might need them next week, right? So you can really have some sort of shocking moments and have higher stakes, and that's really fun. And I also love zooming back into sort of the big idea, the meta concepts of this, which don't really get explored that far, but certainly flipping the script and having in the original series, the Terran Empire, they were the scary bad guys. And now that's completely flipped. And now the Terrans, and why it got flipped, that's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me from a production standpoint, from a writing standpoint, going in that direction. But it's also just a fascinating idea, right? And it's really cool. And I also think that this episode, again, it's not really delved into, but there's a really interesting question we get into. It's a nature nurture story, right? All of these other versions of our characters, are they different or are they biologically the same and their environment has turned them into these people? And it's classic sci-fi nature nurture, like it's standard stuff, but it's really interesting to see and to ask that question. The evil versions of these people, is it just because they're in that environment? Don't know.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing to open up and to start asking questions about. So I think Nana Visitor does an amazing job in this. Really fun. Intendent Kira is what a fun character to play with. There, Mike, there were 2 action figures made from this episode. So keep that. Think about that. That's cool. So So and we might venture back.
Okay.
So
I'd be disappointed if we didn't. I'll say that.
Yeah. So lots of fun stuff yet to come, but I think it does a great job at establishing that world that we can, possibly play with in some more. So for me, you get 83 self-sealing stem bolts. I find it enjoyable. I don't think it's one of like the great classics of the series, but it's really fun, and it sets up that world. And it does so in a way that doesn't become overpowering of the series like it does on Discovery. We spend way too much time in that universe on Discovery. I don't know why they're obsessed with it. It's a strong seasoning. One per season. We don't need to spend 6 episodes there.
I feel like that was time, like the seasoning. It's too much time, and I'm like, no.
What, time travel? You mean?
No. Like actual seasoning.
Oh, time.
Yeah.
Like rosemary, sage.
Yeah, it's like too much, and you're like, nah. This was supposed to be a soupçon, and you gave me a barrel full. Okay.
Do not give Mike a barrel full of time, but you can give him a barrel full of support at patreon.com/KM. You can join these heroes and get more bonus nonsense. If you're here and you haven't already, please give us a like and a subscribe. It very much helps us here on the YouTubes. If you're listening to the audio-only podcast version, and I know there's some of you out there, you can help us out by leaving a rating and review on whatever podcasting service you have. Tell a friend. We really love doing this. We would love to have more and more of our new friends.
And you know what I'm going to do? Just speaking of time travel, Keith, and just to bolster our spirits, welcome to new subscriber Margot, who is just on Emissary Part 2 on YouTube, so just starting the journey.
Wow.
Says, super fun introductory episodes. I finished DS9 myself a couple weeks ago, also my first Trek, so I'm excited to listen to another's thoughts on the same experience. So welcome, Margot.
Welcome, Margot. Fantastic.
6 months from now when you see this.
That's right. Or... Never, because like episode 4, like enough of those those guys are idiots. So anyway, if you enjoy our nonsense, we'll be back next week with another episode. This one we'll be talking about The Collaborator.
Ooh.
We will be back. Check out our other shows, K&M Geekly, and look at my Star Trek toys. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Till then, this has been
Go Birds!
Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.